Was yesterday possibly the wildest day in NFL special teams history? And are the Eagles the brand new Chiefs? Well, we're about to find out and recap all of the craziest moments from week 3 of the 2025 NFL season. I'm your host, Sam Gold. Welcome back to First and Gold. Let's roll the intro.
Casey Karate Kid with the arrow and chop. Nobody can touch us when it's lonely at the top.
Okay, well, first of all, that was a crazy 1 o'clock slate. The 4 o'clock games, there was a couple good ones as well. Came down to the wire, but overall, definitely the wildest witching hour of the season thus far. Stuff that we really don't see that often. I mean, that had to have been the most amount of blocked kicks I have seen on a single Sunday. Kickers just had bad days. Special teams and defense were going crazy. So much to talk about. But of course, if you know me, we got the 3-minute drill to start this episode, which means we're going to rile off a bunch of games that, not going to talk too much about, but I got to give some insight in. So here we go. Let's start now with Thursday Night Football, Bills-Dolphins, 31-21, a little bit closer than we all thought, which is kind of why it's even more painful for Dolphins fans. Because at this point, what are we waiting for? They're boring. They're frustrating. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. And the Bills have so far just really coasted through a pretty easy schedule. They took care of business, but overall, I don't really want to talk about the Dolphins anymore. So let's move on because they suck. All right, Texans-Jags. Now look, it was a 1-score game and it was close the whole way through, but honestly, I don't want to talk about these teams. They're boring, they're sluggish, they're overrated. The Texans season's probably over, and you know what? Yes, all the things that I've been worried about the Texans have been happening yesterday, but honestly, CJ Stroud also didn't really look that good, so that's a concern. Also, the Jags, I'm really not that impressed. Good for them that they're 2-1, but honestly, Trevor Lawrence, he keeps making these weird mistakes every game that is making me a little bit shaky about his future. And then Commanders-Raiders, 41-24. And the Commanders really didn't miss a beat. Hell, it was their best game of the season with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. So does that say more about how Commanders fans should feel extra safe about their future, especially when Jaden comes back and they get going throughout the season? Or how bad is that Raiders defense? Which honestly, I can't remember the last time the Raiders defense was scary at this point. And also, fun fact, the Raiders have 4 passing touchdowns this year, and all 4 of them have went to Trey Tucker. Boom. All right, then Colts-Titans, another team putting up 41 points, and it's Daniel Jones again. I don't understand it. Listen, last week I said, you know what? I'm finally going to respect them. They might actually be a good team this year. Now, look, they beat up on the Titans, which is one of the worst teams in the NFL, but good teams beat up on bad teams. So, yeah, the Colts are a good team. Daniel Jones is out here looking like Josh Allen light. And you know what? I'm actually excited to watch them play for the rest of the season. So Colts fans, the only negative thing I guess you could say is you had your first punt of the game of the season last year. So there you go. And then Falcons-Panthers. To anybody who didn't watch yesterday, here's the final score: 30-0. And no, the Panthers won the game 30-0. So the Falcons, once again, I said this last week, they're probably one of the most confusing teams in the entire NFL. I don't understand it. Michael Penix went out and had 3 fantasy points. Meanwhile, Bryce Young finally was good. So I guess they did prove to me maybe there's some life there when I was just about to give up. That's why the NFL is so great. It's so utterly confusing, but entertaining at the same time. Seahawks beat the Saints 44-13. And the Saints, can they beat the best college football team right now? I'm not sure. Moving on. Cardinals-Niners. The Cardinals just miss out 1 point away from being 3-0. Mind-blowing. But this was just one of a few game-winning kicks where the 49ers and Mac Jones did just enough at the end of the day to get the job done and be one of the weirdest 3-0 teams I've ever seen. And then Jets lose to the Bucks 29-27, and please put up the gif of Aaron Glenn dancing, because that's all you need to know about this game, other than it was a great uniform matchup. And I was upstairs getting ready for the Chiefs-Giants game. My mom, of all people, called down and said, the Jets tied it up. And I'm like, wait a second, I thought the game was over. I go downstairs, it's 27-26 Jets. And then, of course, the life gets sucked out of them, and they lose the game, because why not? And it's the Jets, and now they're 0-3. And then finally, Chargers-Broncos. The Chargers, Chiefs fan, it sucks. They go to 3-0 on a game-winning field goal once again, where honestly, the Broncos kind of just blew it. Their offense is very inconsistent. They had good moments, but the Chargers overall are the more well-coached team, and Justin Herbert keeps laying on honestly some MVP-like performances. So we'll see how he goes the rest of the season. But I'll admit when I'm wrong. The Chargers are actually scary this year. And there you go. That was your probably 3.5 minute drill. Like I said, each week I'm going to try my best to get better. It will get easier when teams start having bye weeks and then there's less games to cover. But listen, there you go. That was pretty wild from all those games. But even more wild, now comes the Pick 6 segment where we talk about the 6 most fun games from the week where I want to get more in depth about them. So here we go, starting with one that I should probably go by pretty quickly, which is Bengals Vikings. So yeah, anybody who was watching the 3-minute drill is probably like, how do you not have this game in there? It was a complete blowout. It was boring for most people that didn't care about these teams. But for some reason, my heart was telling me this morning, I have to talk about this game. I don't know why. First of all, it was 48-10. Vikings won the game. There you go, Al. I mean, you guys got blown out last week against the Falcons at home on Sunday Night Football, and then you come and do this. I don't understand what the NFL is anymore. Carson Wentz is playing quarterback. He's good all of a sudden, even though he put up 0 points for the Chiefs last year. Joe Burrow has a very small chance of coming back in late December if the Bengals are actually playoff contenders. But Jake Browning just proved now through 2 weeks that he's a turnover machine. He's not comfortable in the pocket. He's making bad decisions. And he's not going to be the guy. He's just not going to be the guy right now. Now, maybe this was his worst game of his career, and they still trust him, and he bounces back, and he plays better against the Broncos next week. I could be completely wrong. But just the eye test, just watching him, especially against that ferocious Vikings defense, which, by the way, shout out Isaiah Rodgers for making history of having probably the best individual performance of any Vikings defender in franchise. I can't even believe what I was watching, because every time I look away, there was a new big defensive play or even touchdown by that guy in the same game. You know, as much as I want to credit the Vikings defense, I got to go back on the Bengals side one more time and just think like, yeah, like it's good they started off 2-0, but they got a really tough schedule coming up. And I just don't think that this team is going to have a lot of confidence, especially after how Browning just played. Maybe they go out and try to trade for like one of the better backup QBs in the NFL. Shout out Jameis Winston, just saying he'd be pretty fun with Jamar Chase, okay? But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting journey. I don't know if they're just going to kind of give up and think, you know, Joe Burrow, even if he does come back, we don't want to rush him back and let's just save him for next season. Overall, this was not what any Bengals fan wanted to see. They wanted to see some life. I think I did pick the Vikings to win it, but I thought it was going to be close. And yeah, this game was just very surprising in the way it came out. And that's why, once again, I just don't understand what the Vikings' identity is. I understand they are a great defense, but to come out here against, you know, a team that still has a lot of weapons in the Bengals and completely shut them down, and then Carson Wentz comes out and has a good game as well. Like, all I can say is props to the Vikings. Like, I really don't know what to expect anymore. So we're pretty much 95% there, putting the Bengals season to rest. But yeah, just congrats to all the Vikings fans out there, because that was a fun one to watch for them. Not the Bengals. As we now move on to an AFC North team that did win this weekend, shockingly. And shout out last week's prediction episode, where I had to find out yesterday that my lock of the week and my upset alert were gone in the span of 15 seconds with both the Rams-Eagles game and the Browns-Packers game. But we're going to start with Browns-Packers. 13-10 on a game-winning field goal where the Browns... You know what this game reminded me of? It reminded me of when the Browns beat the 49ers. I believe it was week 6, 2023. Now, the Browns did make the playoffs that year, so they weren't that bad. But it was just one of those games again where I made it my lock of the week for the Packers to win, not only because I thought the Packers were the best team in the NFC going into this week, but like, it's just one of those games you kind of just put aside, and you see it on Red Zone popping up maybe a couple times here and there, and like you've already had it as a done deal that game was not going to be any different than what you thought it was going to be. Completely shocked about this game. I had no idea this was coming, especially since it was 10-0 with like 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Throughout the game, I was like, all right, the Browns defense, which, by the way, shout out, probably the most underrated unit in the entire NFL right now. Their run defense is insane. Josh Jacobs, 1.9 yards a carry in this game. Okay, the Packers, like, they're still good. Their defense is playing well, and it's just kind of just a weird, ugly game where they got to go into Cleveland after getting a nice Thursday night win at home, and they're just going to try to do the bare minimum, get out with a win. But slowly but surely, like, they weren't putting this game away. And eventually, you know, look, the Browns have a couple guys here and there. Shout out Quinshon Judkins really had a breakout game, his first real good game as a rookie. You know, the Browns kind of just creeped back and slowly started carrying momentum throughout this really ugly game. Props to the defense for keeping them in it. Out of nowhere, you just, snap your fingers, you blink, you open your eyes, and it's a tie game. And the Packers, you're like, all right, if there's one drive for them to actually just lock in and do something, it's now. And it's like, no, they punted. And Joe Flacco was a chance to upset what I thought was one of the best teams in the NFL. And before you know it, they kicked the game-winning field goal. So I don't understand it. Shout out the Browns with their uniforms as well, going all brown with the brown helmet. They're now 1-0 with the poop uniforms. It was poop versus pee in this game because the Packers were wearing yellow pants. Everything was ugly. The game was weird. I don't understand it. Packers outlook. They play the Cowboys next week in Dallas. Micah Parsons' revenge game. I do wholeheartedly believe that they're going to get their shit together. They have great coaching, good leadership. So I do believe that they're going to come back and still be a really, really good team this season. And it was just one of those really weird, ugly, fluky losses. All right, and then Steelers-Patriots is up next. 21-14, the Steelers win it. And man, I am not a fan of the Patriots by any means, but I honestly understand if you're a Patriots fan and you turn off the TV halfway through the fourth quarter, because the amount of opportunities you had to play a Steelers team, which had its moments on offense, but overall still looked kind of whatever. And you had 5 turnovers on the offense when there were so many times you were actually marching the ball down the field, looking decent. And I remember at the end of that first half, that Drake May interception, I know it was tipped, but that guy looked wide open. And that was just an absolute heartbreaker. And then the fumbles, the fact that Ramondre was fumbling a bunch, and they still really weren't giving it to Travion Henderson, which I'm still waiting for him to get the ball. He looked great in preseason. I have high hopes for him. So the coaching and the turnovers and the vibes were just completely off for this Patriots team. There were moments where I was confident in them, like, okay, they might actually go out and beat a Steelers team who pretty much everybody thinks is better than the Patriots. And then no, they just ruin it, shooting themselves in the foot. It doesn't seem like this would be a Mike Vrabel-led team, because he's that type of coach that's going to get on your ass if you keep making those mistakes. So I'm sure he was pissed off after this game, as many Patriots fans are. Flipping it to the Steelers side, I think at this point, like against the Jets, that's probably the best you're getting out of Aaron Rodgers this season, like a game like that. And you kind of just have to hope he makes enough plays. Now, props to him. He made a beautiful touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. That was the go-ahead. That was the winner. And that was clutch. So good on Aaron Rodgers. He definitely had a better game than last week, that's for sure. It's so funny with the Steelers. Like, I just feel like every time we're watching Red Zone, the game, first of all, is always close. It's always close. And then you just see them pop up when you think they're about to lose, and they just make a great defensive play. And this has been the mantra of this team for so many years. TJ Watt had a great game. Cam Hayward had a great game. So honestly, props to the Steelers for at least taking advantage one time of that turnover with the Aaron Rodgers touchdown. And look, they're 2-1. They're on that road to 9-8. We all know it. But yeah, devastating loss for the Patriots, and that was definitely a shocker to watch them keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's time to talk about probably the game of the week, Rams, Eagles. Like I said, this was my upset alert. That immediately died in one play at the end of the game, of course. But look, final score 33-26. Eagles. Oh my goodness. I just don't understand. You know what it is now? I get why people hated the Chiefs last year. I get it now. I mean, I understood it last year because, like, no one wants to see the same team win over and over and over again. But the way the Eagles have been winning this year, yeah, no, I get it. I'm humbled. There we go. You have a Chiefs fan right in front of your face, humbled about last season. I mean, where do I even start? Is it the ways that they win? Is it the ugly football where then they become clutch at the end? Is it the tush push? I mean, look, we got a lot of traction on the tush push last week. And I'll say it again. The main reason I don't like the tush push is because it's boring. It's just boring. And look, I know the refs were saying all week that, you know, the league was going to crack down on the play and they were going to call it more. And then you check Twitter yesterday and every single tush push was a false start. Nobody was calling it. I know if it really is a false start in the tush push, you got to at least call a few of them. I get it. But at the end of the day, like, the Rams defense somehow just ran out of steam. And this is a lot of props to Jalen Hurts, who was getting shit these past 2 weeks to start the season about his passing game. And he just went up there and shut up the entire crowd and laid, 3-4 touchdowns total. Best yardage of the season, his best completion percentage. He looked accurate. He looked confident. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith finally got theirs in this game. So he played really well. Props to him. I know that the Eagles fans were booing at halftime. So that was a big turning point where I'm sure they went through a ton of adjustments, probably a bunch of passionate speeches. It was really just a tale of two halves in this game because the Rams, I was feeling good about my pick in the Rams because they were just dominating the ground game, which I was worried about, especially as a Kyren Williams fantasy owner. I didn't know what to expect from this Rams offense. But, man, they were looking great. Devontae Adams had a great catch, which I know Eagles fans are saying that was a push-off as well. So, there you go. We could talk about the refs all day. It doesn't matter. The Rams really lost a great opportunity to maybe even get the 1 seed this year. And I think that's going to come back to haunt them. I know it ultimately came down to one play, which, of course, just like all these crazy plays this week, was a blocked kick that turned into a touchdown, which, by the way, shout out Jordan Davis, who's like 300 plus pounds, and he ran 18 miles per hour on that play, which, honestly, go back and watch our combine video because I can't even run a sub 6 at 215. That's how unathletic I am compared to these monsters, honestly. Like, it's crazy. Like, just once again, like, what is going on in the NFL? And you know what? I'm here for it. I do hate the Eagles, but that was such a funny play to watch, and it just kind of added to the chaos this weekend. You know, the Eagles are really going to start being the villains of the NFL, which any Eagles fans watching, if I can give you any piece of advice as a Chiefs fan, just take a deep breath. Understand it's not one penalty or one call that's going to cost a team a game. Wins happen for a reason. It's because you have good coaching and you're used to winning. You have great leadership and you still have a great roster. Should they call the tush push more? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the Rams blew it, and that was a huge missed opportunity for them in a game that ended up being really fun and just felt like a waste. So overall, okay, one last thing. The Jalen Hurts reaction to the block kick, I'm back and forth. I'm like, oh, he's such a cool guy, but then also it's just corny. It's just corny at this point. I get it. He probably thought in his brain the Eagles didn't deserve to win that game, and they got lucky, and that's why he's not actually excited. Show a smirk or something, dude. Like, I've had enough. I get it. You're trying to act cool all the time, but you just won on one of the craziest plays of the season thus far. To go to 3-0, to have I can't even speak right now. To have the tiebreaker against a team that you're probably most likely going to see back in the playoffs again. Yeah, cool. We won the game. All right, on to next week. Like, I don't know. It's just his personality, but just show some emotion, please, for the love of God. All right, anyways, moving on. We got to move on. Cowboys-Bears, 31-14. But the Chicago Bears come out on top. Another game this week, but I was not expecting this result. The Bears are still a cursed franchise. They always will be until proven otherwise. But look, I picked the Cowboys, but I like the Bears. I was rooting for them. I hope they turned it around. And we'll see what happens the rest of the season, of course. But Caleb Williams comes out, 4 touchdown passes. A lot of them are beautiful as well. And you could just tell from Ben Johnson at the end of the game in his post-game press conference, like, yeah, the guys just didn't want to let this season slip away just yet. And they completely turned it around during practices leading up, and they were ultra focused, and they knew coming into this game that it was do or die. And that's a good thing to see, because I was getting worried about Ben Johnson possibly being this like bust candidate for a head coach. But to go out there and dominate a team that also still has aspirations after having a huge win against the Giants last week at home, this was big. Caleb finally had probably his best game of his career. Everybody looked motivated and inspired. And then on the Cowboys side, I mean, the whole story of the season, we'll get to the CD injury in a second, but the whole story of the season thus far has been their defense. I mean, I said this, if they lost Micah Parsons, are they the worst defense in the NFL? Giving up 34 to Russell Wilson, the Giants, and now 31 to a Bears team, which looked pretty anemic the first 2 weeks. The Cowboys are just really not doing it for me. And honestly, they got a tough schedule coming up. I said this earlier. They play the Packers on Sunday Night Football. They might be like 6-11 this year, especially with what I was about to say. CeeDee Lamb, ankle injury, most likely out 4 to 6 weeks. Having one of the worst defenses in the NFL, missing your best player, that's a recipe for disaster. It's not looking good for the Cowboys. So, honestly, 2 big markets going at it in a game that was watched by many. Only one fan base comes out happy, and the other one probably pretty pitiful about the rest of the season. The game we've all been waiting for. The first win of the season, Chiefs-Giants. Listen, it's funny enough because I've had 2 pretty long rants about the Chiefs to start the year. Rightfully so. But this game, first of all, the final score was 22-9. Kind of an odd one here. But I felt like it was going to be ugly. The first half completely proved that. Just no life on either side of the ball for either team. It was so ugly. I was there in person, and Russell Wilson probably threw 3 of the worst passes I've ever seen in person in my entire life. Just awful. Mahomes was kind of off, and they had that terrible misplay to Kelsey, and then he was throwing it behind the line of scrimmage a couple times, which I know he kind of became a hero in that one play where he stole the ball back, and that was great and all, but like, I'm telling you, especially checking like Twitter online, and I sure as hell would not ever go this far, but people were just like, yeah, fire Andy Reid, like get rid of everything. I'm like, all right, calm down. I get it. The energy was at a whole all-time 0 for this offense at halftime, especially. But listen, I gotta give the Chiefs props. It looked like they genuinely made good adjustments in halftime. They finally ran some like different scheme plays in the running game, which thank God, because you can't just do the same delayed handoff inside zone run down the middle for 3 yards every time. Tyquan Thornton, the guy, the training camp darling for the Chiefs this year, comes out of nowhere, scored last week, had a fantastic catch of the year candidate so far, was that catch right at the goal line in the 4th quarter. That was awesome to see in person. Now that Worthy might be coming back, maybe Worthy could serve as a decoy because people are still worried about his speed. And then that gets Tyquan Thornton wide open, a guy who now has earned Mahomes' trust probably more than any receiver right now, to be honest. And that's actually a nice little duo right there. So honestly, before Rashee Rice comes back, if we could rely on Thornton a lot more, which I was not expecting coming into the season, that's great. You know, there's still a lot of glaring issues about the offense that it's sad because I'm not sure Rashee Rice is going to be the answer to all those problems. I mean, we still have just one of the worst issues at right tackle. I don't understand why Jawaan Taylor still has a job. I don't care how much money we gave him. We literally paid Jalen Moore from the Niners to come in as our backup right tackle. Just put him in at this point. That must mean Jalen Moore is one of the worst players in NFL history if you have not benched Jawaan Taylor for him at this point. Because, gosh, I just don't get it. Like, do they not go up to him during the week and they're like, dude, like, stop ruining half of our drives every single game? It's like he just doesn't listen. He's horrible. Overall, I actually do think this game says a little bit more about the Giants and how bad Russell Wilson was. And like, their defense kind of kept them in this game. And you go back to when it was 22-9 in the 4th and they had one last gasp, those 4 downs in the red zone. And Russ just sailed the ball like into the tunnel 3 times. I was at the game. Jackson Dart actually came in for a couple plays, and the crowd would just erupt when he walked on the field. And they're like, nope, play after. We'll just put Russ right back in. Everybody starts booing. And it's like, do you have any awareness? Like, just start the guy already. I said this last week. The fact that Russell Wilson had a good game against the Cowboys is only going to extend the pain more for Giants fans. Because we know, I said this, we know he's not going to do that 2 weeks in a row. And I was right because he had one of his worst games ever. So now, if they don't start Jackson Dart next week, I'm not talking about the Giants for the rest of the season. Stamp it. It's great to get off the schneid. I like seeing Mahomes in person because every time I've seen him in person, we've won, which is nice. But overall, I actually don't really have that much else to say. I think there's just a lot of glaring problems that probably won't end up being fixed unless we make trades this year. And I really just want the Chiefs to kind of survive until Rashee Rice comes back, and then maybe we can make a nice wild card run and see what happens. So overall, it was ugly, but thank God we got the dub. It was still fun to go to the game. And there you go. That's the end of the Pick 6 segment and the end of our Week 3 recap. We are filming this on Monday, so we'll see what happens with Lions Ravens. Should be a fun one. Great week of football. If you guys want to watch more of our content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and go follow us also on all the social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, at First and Gold. And yeah, we'll see you next time for the Week 4 prediction episodes. Goodbye.